Samvel gripped the steering wheel. His knuckles were white. Years of driving a minibus through Yerevan's chaotic streets had a way of doing that to a man. But Samvel wasn't complaining. He had a family to feed. His wife, Anush, waited tables at a little cafe near their apartment. They had 2 kids, Tigran and Nare, who were both smart as whips. Tigran dreamed of being a doctor, Nare, a writer. Samvel lived for those kids. He worked his route, ferrying passengers through the city, rain or shine. He never complained. He was a provider. Samvel pulled up to a stop, the brakes sighing in relief. A group of men clambered in, their chatter filling the minibus. They were talking football, as always. Armenia was playing soon. Everyone was excited. Samvel listened with half an ear. He wasn't a gambling man himself. He had seen what it did to people. No, Samvel was content with his lot. The next day, his route seemed to stretch on forever. Every turn, every stoplight, brought Vartan's words back to him. Paid off his whole debt. Samvel began to notice the betting shops he'd always ignored. They seemed to be everywhere, beckoning him with their bright lights and promises of quick riches. He'd pick up passengers, their conversations filled with talk of odds and wins and losses. The amounts they spoke of made his head spin. One afternoon, while waiting for a passenger, Samvel found himself drawn into a betting shop. The air was thick with smoke and anticipation. He stood awkwardly by the door, watching as men huddled over their slips, their faces illuminated by the flickering screens. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. He had never felt this kind of rush before. He told himself he was just curious. He just wanted to see what all the fuss was about. He ended up staying for an hour, watching the odds change, listening to the excited chatter. A man next to him, noticing his interest, explained the basics. Samvel listened intently, his mind racing. It seemed so simple. Just pick the right team, the right score, and boom, instant riches. The man, sensing his hesitation, clapped him on the back. Just a small bet, friend, for luck. Samvel placed his first bet the next day. It was a small sum, money he could technically afford to lose. But as the match began, he felt his heart pounding in his chest. He watched the game with an intensity he hadn't felt in years. Every goal, every near miss sent a jolt of adrenaline through him. By the final whistle, he was sweating. He had lost. He walked home that night, the weight of his loss heavy in his pocket. He had known it was a gamble. He had known the odds. Yet, a part of him had truly believed he would win. The disappointment was crushing. It wasn't long before Samvel was betting again. This time, he told himself, would be different. He had learned from his mistakes. He studied the teams, analyzed the odds, convinced himself he had found a sure thing. He bet bigger this time, driven by the need to win back his initial loss. And he lost again. The losses began to pile up. What started as small bets quickly escalated into larger sums. Samvel was in over his head, but he couldn't stop. He was chasing his losses, convinced that the next bet would be the one to turn it all around. He started borrowing money, first from friends, then from less savory sources. He assured them it was just a temporary setback, that he would pay them back soon. The calls started coming. At first they were just reminders, polite but firm. Then the tone changed. Threats were made. Men began appearing at his door, their faces hard, their intentions clear. Samvel lived in a constant state of fear. He was a hunted animal, his every move watched. He stopped going home, afraid of what he might bring upon his family. He slept in his minibus, his body aching, his mind racing. Samvel knew he couldn't stay in Yerevan. He had brought shame upon his family, destroyed the life they had built together. He was a pariah, a ghost haunting the streets he once navigated with pride. In the dead of night, he packed a small bag, leaving behind the weight of his mistakes. He kissed his sleeping children goodbye, their innocent faces a painful reminder of his failures. He left Anush a note, a jumbled apology filled with promises he knew he couldn't keep. He boarded a bus heading north, away from the city, away from his past. He had no destination in mind, no plan, no future. He was a man running from his demons, hoping against hope that they wouldn't catch up. The minibus rumbled through the night, carrying him towards an uncertain future.